Hey guys! I wanted to start off by wishing you a very safe and memorable Memorial Day. Um, Memorial Day for me used to always center around drinking. And by drinking, I mean pretending to have a barbecue, standing there barbecuing whatever meat we were planning to have so that I could drink. And that's how I spent my Memorial Day. I didn't really know the meaning and I didn't really care. It was just an excuse to start summer off by drinking. And that's how I pretty much spent my summer anyways, was by drinking lots and lots and lots of beer. So I figured on Memorial Day, what better topic to talk about is memories. A few episodes I've been talking about my past and some of the things I've done in my past. And as you've probably gathered, I came into sobriety with a lot of baggage. Like so much baggage. So many suitcases full of stuff that I've done and regret and guilt and shame and remorse. And what I didn't realize when I got sober was that when I got sober, the baggage doesn't just disappear. It stays with you. And sometimes it becomes even more clear because now you're not numbing out. Now you're having to come to terms with the stuff that you've done in your past. And sometimes that can be so overwhelming because here you are struggling to even not drink today or not use drugs. And now you're expected to live with this guilt and shame and remorse and pain. So much pain. I remember my first day just laying in bed and all I could think about is my kids. My kids saw me drunk. My kids saw me passed out. My kids saw me talking to police officers. My kids saw me sometimes upset and angry and crying uncontrollably. They saw me in not a good place. And even though my daughter was only 2 and she doesn't really remember that, my son does because he was 7. So he has those memories and he's able to remember things because there'll be random moments in time when he'll just randomly say, "Are you okay?" Because he'll see me crying and it'll kind of trigger a memory. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it, which I tend to do. So how do we deal with these things when we get sober? For me, the first thing that I had to tackle was the pain that I had in regards to being a mom. How do I go from being a drunk mom to a sober mom while dealing with all this pain and guilt and shame and remorse and still maintain being a good mom? And I had to work on that right away, otherwise it was going to take me back out to that drink. So my first initial course of action was I chose to do the 12 Steps program. And I chose that because it was kind of this safe place filled with people that I didn't always relate to, but most of them that I was talking to had been in the program for a while and they were having success. So I figured for me personally, that was a safe place to go. It also gave me a place to go when I was feeling overwhelmed. There were moms there were parents who could understand that being a parent is not always easy. It's overwhelming. You have sometimes the weight of the world on your shoulders because you make these decisions for these little people and they trust you without any fear because you're this person that provides for them. And in my case, I'm the person that carried them in the stomach. And so that can be a lot of pressure. And if you are like me, when I get too much pressure, I kind of implode or explode. Meaning I will either go so far inside myself where I just sit there, or I explode by drinking or eating or doing reckless behaviors. And so the 12 steps kind of gave me a formula of how to tackle some of these things. And the first thing for me was writing out a list of the things that I had done, the things that I was angry about, upset about, that I thought about multiple times. And each person can do this or they don't have to. It's just a matter of what works for us when it comes to recovery. And that was the first initial thing that helped me get sober, was by jumping into something that I felt safe with. And I didn't do that inventory thing for about 6 months into my sobriety because I needed to learn how to be sober before I could feel pain again. So to move forward with baggage, to get sober and live with baggage, it's not going to be easy, and I'm not going to say it's easy because even today when I am 1,263 days sober, I still have baggage. I've created new baggage as a sober woman because for me and my drinking, there's a saying, drinking was but a symptom. And that's kind of accurate for me. I can make a long list of the whys I am the way I am, and I can use my family as an excuse, but it comes down to me. The way my mind works, when I'm angry, upset, when I feel like everything is spiraling out of control, even though I can't control anything, I want to try to control it. And I go back into that place where I think I make the best decisions and that I can control the world around me. And if I just do this one thing or that one thing, that everything else around me is going to fall into place. And quite honestly, that never happens. Never, ever, ever. Usually the opposite happens. I just make everything much, much worse. And then I do things I regret. And for me, that goes back to those behaviors. I've done behaviors drunk and I've done behaviors sober. One of my behaviors I do when I am feeling feelings or emotions or I'm stressed and the world is spiraling out of control is I seek to find self-worth, self-esteem, self-worthiness from other people instead of looking inside myself. And that's one of the greatest struggles that I deal with is trying to make myself feel better by using other people. And so it's something that I've constantly worked on. It's one of those suitcases full of baggage that I've carried with me throughout my life, going from a teenager who was bulimic to being a 20-something-year-old who was a drunk to being a 30-year-old who is having treatment in India and dealing with a change in life. These defects, this defect specifically, when I pick it back up, makes me act like a crazy person. And moral of the story is I'm sober. So that means, unlike when I was drinking, I can recognize it faster. That doesn't mean I won't create more wreckage or more pain or more baggage or stuff that I have to continue living with, which maybe eventually I'll talk about. It just means that now I have the tools that have worked for me before that I get to use. So for me today and for me 3.5 years ago, that simply meant talking to somebody, sharing what I went through with just one person. It doesn't have to be the world. It doesn't have to be a group of people. It doesn't have to be written down. It doesn't have to be journaled. It doesn't have to be shared online. But for me, I need that one safe place to share with so that it doesn't have to be all in here. And it doesn't have to be like a bag of stones constantly weighing me down. So when I got sober, the first thing I shared with somebody was about my childhood trauma. Because I didn't know how much it weighed me down until I shared about it. And what I realized was when I drank a lot, at some point when my mind switched over to that blackout person, I would often tell whoever I was with, and especially my last drink, the police officer, I was telling them about my trauma. And that's one of the few things I remember from that black/brownout, was telling them about that and how much it impacted me. And it took me getting sober and sharing that in order to move on from it, because I had blocked it out. So sharing it just with one person allows me to share it safely without having to relive all of the trauma and all of the guilt and all of the shame and remorse, and kind of not forget it, but put it in a place where I don't have to live through it every single day. I don't have to carry that pain on my shoulders every single day. And that allowed me the freedom to begin learning new things about myself, to begin building a life that I wanted to live with. Like, not constantly reacting to every single thing, and trying to find a place where I could find peace and serenity. And that also meant saying the serenity prayer like 25 times during the day when I was 1 to 2 months sober. And when I got into a situation, because my sobriety path hasn't been roses and rainbows and unicorns, it's been a journey, and I use that word very liberally. It's a journey for me, and it always has been, and it always will be, and I love that, because now I don't have to drink, but I do have to own up to my shit. And it's the simplest things that often work the best. So if you're struggling today on this day filled with memories, and you're going back to people that you've lost, or people that you miss, or things that you've done, or if you're sitting at a barbecue debating whether you're going to drink or not, just remember, we don't have to live with the things that we used to do. We aren't that person anymore. Just by doing one new thing differently changes our entire outlook. And if you don't know how to go to a barbecue sober, best tip ever, you don't have to go. You don't have to go sit at a barbecue and pretend that everything is okay. Or if you want to go, bring your own drinks. That's the beauty of a barbecue. You can bring your own drink, you can bring your own food, you can go and set yourself a timer so that you can leave at a certain point. We get to make the choices. We get to choose how we live our lives. We get to choose what we put in our bodies, and we get to choose what we consider to be fun or not fun. And we can say no. We don't have to always say yes to everything. And that in itself is one of the greatest gifts of sobriety. So thank you so much for listening. More episodes will be coming this week, and take care.